All right, we're back. Apparently, we have to talk about hockey. I feel like we can just skip the fantasy portion of that. Personally,
no, you can't weasel your way out of this one, man.
Oh, okay. Go for it, Tradon.
Yeah. All right, let's start with fantasy. Look, the first and second seed are not winning fantasy this year.
Dumb.
They are done. James, Tyler, both won their 2-week playoff, and they're actually playing each other. Do you guys really even care about the third and fourth place battle? No. I'm not.
I think they win $20
for the next.
They win their money back.
Yeah. That's true. For the next 2 weeks, all we're going to talk about is Tyler and James. As it stands right now, after day one, James has 252 points to Tyler's 76. I know
what the hell, Tyler? Why couldn't you done that yesterday?
That seems like a wide margin.
And Saturday.
I mean, James just put up 252 points in like a day, so that could easily flip.
It'll flip.
It'll easily flip the other way. Look, I'm struggling to find like really interesting things to talk about. I'm sorry about that, but I think I got some okay ones. To be honest, I'm gonna start off right from the top. Let's see. Yeah. Vancouver Canucks have gone, I guess now 3-2 in their first weeks. They went 3-1 in their first week back since March 24th. They are currently actually after tonight's games. I want to update this. They are 10 points out of a playoff spot, but have 5 games at hand on the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal won their game today against Calgary, and Ottawa beat Vancouver Canucks, so Vancouver did not get a point. But technically, Vancouver still has the games at hand to make the playoffs. So Eric, I'm going to ask you: can Vancouver pull off this feat and make the playoffs after a terrible season of COVID and all this shit?
No, fuck them, because they fucked me over in fantasy, as I explained earlier with Thatcher Demko, when the whole team went down with COVID. But no, I actually don't think they could do it anyways. It's just not enough time. What do they have? 6 games left or something?
They actually have 14.
14? Oh shit.
14 and they have 5 games at hand. So there's a potential 10 points there, which would have them tied with Montreal, assuming Montreal didn't win another game.
Exactly. So they need Montreal to lose the rest of their games, which I don't see that happening. But not only were they hit with the COVID storm, they came out flat this year. We all thought they would be better. They signed Holtby, a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, he finally had a good couple games these last 3 games. So, it took him a while to get going. I think it's too little too late. Pettersson is still out with an injury. That's one of their top players. I feel like they kind of just lost some swagger this year. They got rid of Tanev, who seemed to be a big locker room guy that helped them a lot last year. Last year we saw them almost go to the Western Finals and almost beat Vegas in a Game 7. Ended up being a 1-goal game that Vegas scored in the third period with a little bit of time left. But I think this year maybe people had higher expectations for them, and they haven't really fulfilled that. I think it's too little too late, and that they're not going to pull this off.
Look, I said this maybe 5 weeks ago that the Canucks were dead, and I have to stand by that, or else I can't just be a flip-flopper. That's not cool. You got to stick with what you believe. I believe they're out of it. However, I do just want to point out that they do have a lot of games against the Flames, and they have one more game against the Senators this season. Those are winnable games, especially right now. The Flames are I don't know what they are. They are really struggling. The Daryl Sutter thing hasn't really panned out as I expected. I just don't think he has the personnel that he needs to make that team what he needs to make it. This is the type of coach that he is. He is playing the Oilers 4 times, which the Oilers right now are playing very well. The Jets are going to be fighting for second place, and they play the Maple Leafs twice. It's a big uphill battle, but I'll also look at it the other side. James's Montreal Canadiens are just very inconsistent for me. They're 4-6 in their last 10. And they're just all over the place. They have a 0 goal differential now, and they did have a positive, they had a positive one for the longest time, a very strong positive goal differential, but they have just fallen from grace from that early on. But I think I'm going to agree with you, Eric. I think they're done. But I think they're going to battle it out. They're going to try. And they should. I mean, if you have a chance, you have a chance. I just don't think Calgary has the willpower. But I just think Vancouver is just too far out unless Montreal just can't figure it out. James, I guess this does include your Montreal. Do you think Montreal is going to be take that spot or what?
Yeah, I do. They need some veteran leadership right now to kind of lead them through this period of burnout, of plateau. I think Carey Price can be that leader, but right now he's out with a concussion. Yep. So without being in there and playing, somebody needs to step up. And I'm really hoping Jeff Petrie does that soon, because he's kind of been one of the top guys this year, especially on defense, a top goal, like point getter. He needs to step it up right now, bring some of that veteran mindset and leadership to a reasonably young team, and a team that is kind of inexperienced because all those guys have picked up this offseason who haven't played in a while or haven't had that playoff experience. When Carey Price comes back, I think he'll be that veteran leadership that kind of captains the ship and leads them to where they need to be.
Wow, I like it. If just to give you guys a quick rundown, if the playoffs started today, Montreal would be playing Toronto. To me, right on paper, that seems like a complete mismatch. And Edmonton would play Winnipeg, which has been a very fun series all season. So I'm very excited for the playoffs. They're just, the Oilers have 10 more games and Vancouver has 14. So we're getting close. Moving on to the East, Pittsburgh shut out the Bruins yesterday to earn the top spot in the Mass Mutual East. They went from 6th to 1st in a matter of 4 or 5 weeks. Alex, I know you love for some reason you love taking the East, the East topics, and I love it because I need to follow them more. I guess my question for you is Pittsburgh going to be able to sustain this to win the division in the regular season, but also do you think they have the firepower and the willpower to win the first 2 rounds to be the team out of the top 2 or the first 2 rounds there?
Yeah, you know what the crazy thing is? So one of my best buddies, we talk about hockey all the time. He's a huge Pittsburgh Penguins fan. I mentioned him on the podcast a couple of times. I remember texting him maybe early March, late February, saying, is it time to blow it up in Pitt? Like, I was full on ready for them to blow it up. And was I wrong? Because they've gone on an absolute tear over the last month. Obviously, they've traded for the hottest man in hockey, Jeff Carter. That is super helpful. And you still have Malkin just waiting in the wings. He's there's still not a super good timetable for his return, but it seems like the organization says he'll be back before the end of the regular season. Obviously getting him back sooner rather than later would be ideal. Get his legs back under him, getting him back up to, NHL speed. I think I talked about this last week. We talked about the East being unbelievably tough when the season started, and it's kind of been a letdown. I mean, the Flyers have been a huge disappointment. The Sabres should be relegated. The Devils are terrible. The Rangers have finally turned it around. They'd probably be a playoff team in other divisions, but I just don't really trust the other 3 teams. I don't have a bunch of faith in, especially the goaltending for the other 3 teams. And Yari has been playing a lot better as of late. And I think he can carry them. And I think Pittsburgh, there's a lot of guys, Bergeron, Ovechkin, that have a lot of playoff experience on those other 2 teams. The Islanders, again, are just the most annoying team in hockey. But I think Pittsburgh is surprisingly somehow the most deep team.
Wow.
And any team that has Crosby and Malkin is going to compete. And so to answer your question, yeah, I think they can hold on to it. They've been playing the best hockey of late. Sometimes that's what it's all about. I know we bring this up all the time, but we saw it with the Kings, the 8 seed in 2012. They played hot. They won the cup as an 8 seed. So
yeah,
I think Pittsburgh has a really good shot to come out of the East and be one of the final 4.
Yeah. I love what they've done ever since Ron Hextall and Brian Burke took over the management team. And I'm a big follower of Brian Burke. He's a former GM for the Anaheim Ducks back when they won their cup. He's also been part of Sportsnet, which I listen to every single day. they came in and I didn't know what they were going to be able to do. There was questions of whether, Malkin or Crosby were going to be on the trading block or Letang. They kept it together, and they brought in now Jeff Carter. And I think that to your point, I think they're probably the deepest team in terms of the scoring all the way through the lineup. You don't have the problems that Boston has where only one line can score. They have a plus 34 goal differential. That is best in the Mass Mutual East, just ahead of the Rangers, who are actually on the outside looking in, who did have the best goal differential, ironically enough. Their home split is insane. 23-2. They've lost 5 games at home. They love to play at home, clearly. And they're 8-1-1 in their last 10, and they're on a 4-game winning streak. I think you're absolutely right. They are going to come out of the top or out of that division. They are like tiny bit behind the Washington in terms of the point percentage, but one more game, one more Washington loss, and boom, it's flipped the other way. So, I think that Pittsburgh is going to win the Mass Mutual East. And I think that they have a very good shot of making those first two or winning those first 2 rounds. To your point before that the East is a little bit of a letdown, I would agree. I will say that it must be because New Jersey and Buffalo are so bad, but the point percentage between the top 6 teams is better than anybody else. Like the 5th and 6th point Rangers and Philadelphia both have better point percentages than the 4th spot in the Honda West. Which leads me to think that they're just like New Jersey and Buffalo just get their asses handed to them every single night. And we obviously that we did see that. I would love to see the Rangers squeak in because I think that they've really turned it on. I don't think it's going to happen though. I think it's just too little too late. But yeah, I agree with you. Let's see Pittsburgh win the Mass Mutual East because I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Just like I said about the Scotia North, if the playoffs were to start today, Pittsburgh would be taking on Boston. I would love to see that series. That'd be a fun series. And Washington would take on the Islanders. Offense versus defense, classic battle. It'd be interesting to see how that kind of pans out. And now we're going to move over to the Honda West. James, you wanted to take this one over, if I'm not mistaken. The Honda West. They were the first. Their top 3 teams were the first to clinch the playoffs already. It's very early. I would say that they were the only ones to clinch so far, but that is not true. Carolina earned their loser point today and did clinch the playoffs in the Discover Central. But that 4th spot is up for grabs, and it has been an ugly ass battle. I hate the bottom of the Honda, guys. I'm so sorry. The bottom of the Honda past Minnesota is absolutely terrible, in my opinion. Vegas, Colorado, Minnesota, as I mentioned, all clinched. But it is a battle for the 4th spot. To me, it's between St. Louis and Arizona. You could maybe say that if San Jose wins their game right now, they could have a chance. But James, who do you think is taking that 4th spot?
It's so crazy that technically every single one of those teams still has a shot. The Ducks, who are in my power rankings number 30, still have a shot at making playoffs if they win out.
They haven't eliminated. They haven't been
Not
eliminated. Yet. Oh wow!
They might tonight because they're losing against the Kings.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah, they're so terrible. But I'm gonna agree with you. I think it's gonna come down to the wire, and I think it's gonna be the Blues and the Coyotes. At the end of the day, I do think the Blues take that number 4 spot and make the playoffs that way. The goal difference right now is Blues with -8, Coyotes with -22. So that's the only stat that really sets them apart right now. The Blues are ahead by 1 point, and the Blues have also played 2 less games than the Coyotes have. Further looking into stats this way, everything else is pretty much neck and neck. There's really no real differential other than the goal differential and the way that they play in their power play minutes and the power play in their power play, in their power kill or power in their kill, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
PK.
Penalty kill. There it is.
We got
I watch hockey, clearly. So what I looked at was these weird little stats. Maybe one of these teams can play better away from home. And that's what the case is here. The Blues play better when they're away. They have a better record away. They've won 6 more games away, and right now 60% of the remaining games are away. So that could give them an edge. Also, the Blues have been competitive in the games up until the very end. They haven't lost by more than 2 goals since the beginning of April. On the other hand, when the Coyotes lose, they lose by more than 2 goals often. So if you look at it that way, the longer you can stay in games, the closer you are, the more competitive you technically are. The more you fight, the better your culture, the more you win. To be honest, though, I don't really know what I'm talking about. So it's going to come down to the feeling, and I just feel like the Blues are going to take it because they have more of that pedigree. They've had more success recently. They won a cup recently. The Coyotes have been kind of off the map up until the last 2 years. So I think the Blues will just take it due to the fact that they have before, and they have the personnel to do so and the experience to do so.
The Blues are lucky to even be where they are right now, just in the fact of what Tradon said, where like they were expected to be way better this year, and they've just haven't really done shit this season, and they're still like probably going to make the playoffs. They still have time to turn it on, and it's just like fuck, you know, that's how bad the division is.
That's the beauty of playing in a terrible division. Let's be real. Look, because my fiance is a huge Sharks fan. I would love for them to make it in. Don't shoot me, TLDR podcast.
Fuck no.
I know you hate the Sharks. I get it. I understand it. And I'm not gonna say that you're wrong because you have that's got to happen. But the Sharks are 1-8-1. They're in the last 10. They're not making it. So it is between Arizona and St. Louis. I'm gonna actually pull for Arizona just to be different than you, James, because I like that. I want the first thing I looked at was what the difference in save percentage was, and you're absolutely right. They're both sub 900 at like 0.896 and 0.898. Both trash, both terrible.
They're losing against the Sharks right now, just so you know. It's like 4-2.
Yes, and I saw those 4 goals.
1-8-1 Sharks.
4 goals against, and it's just not good. I don't know. I think to your point, James, whatever team's going to make it in is going to lose. Like in the first round, it's not even going to be a big matchup. But I'm just going to say the Arizona Coyotes just because I think they have, I don't know. Just feeling. I feel it, whatever. And I just want to be different. I don't want to, be alike and everything. I guess the only thing I could point to is St. Louis does have a better 10-game stretch. They're fine 5-5. Arizona's 3-7. Not very good. That's not really helping my case here. But I don't know. I got to be different. I can't completely agree with you. But the Honda West, if we were to start the playoffs today, Vegas would be taking on St. Louis. What a mismatch. Does anybody even put any money on St. Louis?
Oh, I would.
Not even stupid money?
No, I would. Enough to make me like $100 off of $5.
Yeah, I'd put money on it just for a possible upset.
Exactly.
And like I was just saying, like all year they haven't done shit. They've been lucky to be where they are, but like now it's like, okay, they might get in the playoffs and might just turn it on at the right time, kind of like the Kings when they were the 8th seed.
Yeah, that's very true.
And just fuck Vegas. That'd be so great for them to just lose right immediately to the Blues.
Yeah, that would be kind of crazy. However, Vegas has the best goal differential, the longest streak, the best point percentage, and I don't need to go on because they're one.
Didn't you argue it's because they play in the worst division?
That could be the case.
Yes.
But they do have to face the second best team in the league. 8 times
in the worst division.
Tradon, is the Stanley Cup final really going to be the Vegas Colorado series? I love
whoever
that wins question. That.
So you're saying the second round would be the Stanley Cup final?
Yeah. Just like the year the Kings played the Rangers, it was like whichever Kings or Blackhawks come out of the West is going to be the Stanley Cup champion.
I would like to think so. And actually, the way that to Eric's point earlier, the way that the whole division is set up, it does suck that these two teams have to play each other so early because this should actually be the Western Conference final. Like if we were back to normal, this should be the Western Conference final. I'm going to say not necessarily because I think that those two teams are going to run each other into the ground. And by the time you get out of that, you're going to play a Carolina who breezed through maybe, or Toronto who breezed through, but that could make you stronger. So I think that if you're not watching, to your point though, if you're not watching that series, you're an idiot. I think that's a must watch series, second round of the playoffs. Even if you don't like hockey, you'll like it after that series because it's going to be amazing. And
even if the ice is melted.
Even if the ice is melted. And Colorado would be playing Minnesota. Look, Minnesota has been great. It's a great story. I just don't think that they can compete with Colorado. Let's be real. Before we move on to the fourth, even though we're not talking about the Discover Central, I do want to say the playoff thing as it stands today. Carolina would play Nashville, although I'm still pulling for Dallas on that one. I think Dallas.
Preds, baby.
They just beat Carolina today, man. That's cool.
Yep. And Florida would play Tampa. Look, Florida would play Tampa in a playoff series, guys. That is what Florida needed. That is what the Florida Panthers needed. They need this type. Like it's always been. I guess that's a terrible rivalry right there, Eric. Florida and Tampa Bay. It's been completely mismatched. But I don't think it is.
Go Florida.
I don't think it is anymore. I think that Florida could give them a run for their money.
Well, this is how rivalries are created, Tradon. I guess it's the one thing we could give the NHL credit for this year. It's if they did one thing right.
It's putting Florida and Tampa Bay in a series. I mean, think about it. You get a better rest because you're not traveling quite as far. It's going to be such a great series.
Think of how many fans are going to be there. It's Florida.
It'd be so much fun. Florida would have a problem, but Tampa Bay wouldn't. So, moving on to my fourth one. This is just a little bit of, I guess, housekeeping issues with the NHL. The Scotia North Division is currently mulling over options for its playoffs, mostly because, in those last couple rounds, assuming that the winner goes on to the Stanley Cup final, the teams would have to travel to Canada. The American teams would have to travel to Canada. And due to the Canadian border, shut down to the Americans, and, even though the NHL got a shortened quarantine period because of COVID, it's still been quite strict, and it would almost make it impossible for it to be a viable situation unless the Canadian government, gave the NHL an exception. So a bubble is being considered for the North playoffs, a bubble here in the United States. So Tyler, first of all, do you think this is a viable option? I guess I'm gonna start there.
If the border restrictions don't get lifted, I think it's unfortunately probably their only option. Not their only option, but it's probably the best option. It's not ideal because you want to play in your home arena with potentially a few fans there. So it really suck for the fans not to be able to see their team in the playoffs. I mean, that you don't want that. Ideally, you want to be in your home arena, but it's all going to come down to what Canada decides on the restrictions at the border. That's what's going to come down to. It's probably going to come down to the very last minute. I'm assuming they're probably talking with, government officials about this, hopefully to get an exception, like you mentioned. So I hope it doesn't come to the U.S. bubble, and I hope that they can play in Canada because, as a fan, if I was in a situation, get a chance to go to a playoff game for my team, like I'm going to want to do that. So for all the Canadian fans up there, I hope that it happens. I hope those the restrictions get lifted one way or another. But if it doesn't, I think they're going to have to do a U.S. bubble.
Yeah,
I just have to.
I agree with you. And, unfortunately, for the longest time, we were saying how Canada is doing amazing at keeping the COVID out. That is not the case right now. They are way worse than us right now. And to be fair, it's also a lot has to do with the vaccine rollout. But they I don't even think if I talk to my family, they would even think about going into an arena. Like they couldn't even fathom that idea. And the Ducks are having fans, San Jose is having fans. Like it's a completely different, or the Warriors had fans. Like it's completely different here. So I to your point, I think that they're going to be, and I think it's going to end up in a bubble inevitably. And I think that it's going to end up early. Like it's going to end up the first round. Like they're going to be coming down early. So my question for you is, there's not going to be any quarantine period. They're just going to be able to set up shop. And I'm not sure how strict the bubble will even be compared to last time. Like I don't like here in the United States, it's going to be, it's much different unless the NHL has its own protocols. But where would you set up shop for the North Division?
I think you go to wherever state is allowing the most fans, which probably Texas. So if Dallas doesn't make the playoffs, go to Dallas.
Okay. I like that idea. I think, but so what if they do?
What if they go to Dallas?
Yeah. No. What if Dallas does make it and they can't really support that?
Yeah. Then obviously you couldn't go to Dallas. So whatever there's no other second team in Dallas. So I don't know. I don't know what the
Go to
state
San
restrictions are
Antonio.
off the top of my head, but probably some.
Why
maybe,
can't you just convert a stadium? Like take AT&T Stadium and convert it into.
there you go.
rink.
You
That's-
Go to Arizona.
You could go to Arizona. Here's the issue with Arizona right now, guys. Here's a crazy stat. So they're allowing 50% capacity at Arizona games, and they're not selling the 50% capacity.
Because the Coyotes suck.
because
I mean, well, the issue is the location of the rink is not very good for the people in the city. So I don't know how many fans would go there, but I think that's a good idea in terms of like the restrictions being lifted. I think that Arizona is probably next to Texas is probably the best. You can't go to Florida because both teams are making it. That's not a viable option.
or do you
go to LA?
like a
Go to LA.
a northern state?
If I could see the Oilers play a playoff game during
Yeah.
COVID, first of all, my family would hate me, and two, I don't even give a shit because I get to see the Oilers play.
I mean, you got two stadiums. The teams are not going to make the playoffs.
It's true.
Restrictions are lifted.
It's true. It's very true.
I'd go to a game
Center,
on
the
the
Honda Center, whatever the fuck it's called.
I think
Do
you
it.
could put two teams in, do two teams in one and two teams in
Yeah,
the
two
other.
teams in the other.
You
Done.
could easily do
We
that.
figured it out.
We figured it out.
You're welcome,
I think
Gary
the Honda
Bettman.
Center is way more usable though, because
100%.
Staples Center
Oh, yeah.
use it for basketball too.
100%.
And so there's less work to be done at the Honda Center versus
That's true.
Staples.
That's true. And they're going to be playing every other day anyway, so I think it would be fun.
Maybe the Lakers and Clippers both in the playoffs at the same time, or like coming down to that point. So
Yeah. My
Rivalry.
last option or idea
the
would
form.
be my last option and idea would be Buffalo.
SoFi.
so fine. There you go.
And the reason I say Buffalo is they do this survey every single year, and of all the hockey watchers for hockey playoffs that aren't like for fans that are not their teams are not in the playoffs, Buffalo by far has the biggest viewership of hockey because their team's never in the playoffs, but they have the biggest viewership for hockey. They have a very strong hockey fan base there, and I think it would be kind of cool to give them the opportunity to express that and actually go see playoff hockey because they're never going to see it.
Oh, that's brutal.
unless they take the trip to the city, and I don't think they really want to do that. So that's just another option, but it's interesting. We'll keep everybody updated. That's all I got, guys. Hockey, it's coming down to the wire last few weeks here.
Yeah, thank you, Tradon. Before we end, I'm going to endorse Tyler for fantasy hockey champion. I'm throwing that out there.
They beat you last year? All right.
One, because James cheated to win last year because the season ended and he just happened to be in first place.
How did I
And-
cheat that?
I don't know. You cheated. Don't worry about it. And because he beat me this year, so I'm endorsing Tyler as fantasy hockey champion.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
down by 200.
Down by 200. The
Thanks.
comeback will be real.